Good afternoon. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. I'm your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio today with my dad and co-host. Hi, Dad.
How are you?
Good. Today we're going to be talking about Millennials and Technology. We have a very special guest. His name is Gabby Jubron, and he is the founder and executive director of a startup nonprofit called Happy, which is helping awesome parents parent intentionally. He was born and raised in the heart of the Silicon Valley, and he spent 5 years working in technology, and he's now on a mission to help parents and kids use these tools more mindfully. Hi, Gabby.
Hello, Jasmine. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being on with us.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
So Gabby, tell us a little bit about millennials and the I generation, and talk to us a little bit about how connected they are to technology. I know, growing up, my kids at a certain point were able to program my VCR, which was outdated at that time, but they were able to program the DVD player and really outdo me in technology. So they kind of were born in this world of technology.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about how connected are they, as well as how disconnected are they?
Yeah, a lot to discuss there. So, I think there is a big distinction between millennials and iGen because millennials at least have some semblance of what it was like living in a much more analog time than the newest generation that, are considered much more digital natives. And the way I like to look at how technology impacts our lives is actually through the lens of happiness. So I'll get back to millennials and iGen once I sort of explain how technology is really critical to this sense of connection that we need and that we crave. So every parent wants the same thing for themselves and for their loved ones, which is to be happy. And people are happy when they have a safe place where they can be themselves while feeling like they can belong and contribute to something bigger than themselves. Now, the issue that we face in our society is that it's very hierarchical. Someone or something is typically telling you what to do with your time. And this is especially difficult for a parent because they have very little choice in terms of what they can do within their day because they need to do these things in order to survive or to subsist. Whereas the child, their top priority isn't necessarily that I have to go to school and I have to do homework and do all of these things. Kids naturally are very inquisitive. They want to play and learn, and they're much more present than us. And we are sort of forced to condition them into the system. And parents then, unfortunately, have to rely on other institutions like the education system, which reinforce this problem, right? We tell kids that you have to sit down and listen and pay attention. And if you don't learn in this particular way, you're out of luck. And failing is the worst possible thing that you can do. And by the way, here's all this homework. And so kids are being told what to do almost all the time. And really, we're all looking for some sense of agency and a sense of being ourselves. And the system is designed in a way that doesn't really allow for that. And so when it comes to technology, kids see this as this way of having agency, feeling like they have control in their lives. This is this tool that I have access to where my friends are. I can play games. I can learn about a whole bunch of stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise learned. But if I don't have a very strong sense of self, well, you know what? I am going to get validation from how many likes my picture got on it. Because as I was saying before, everyone wants to belong to something bigger than themselves. Everyone wants to fit in and be cool. And, the thing that I think is unfortunate about the way that a lot of these social platforms impact our lives is that they're creating a world of followers and not leaders. And it's even, explained in the way that they talk about the people that use the platform, right? They're considered to be users. They're followers, right? We're considered to be consumers of content. And I think that's the struggle that we're sort of dealing with here. And you can't necessarily blame Facebook or Twitter or any of these other social platforms because this is how the system works. We live in this attention economy where businesses make money by gathering our attention. And so when it comes to millennials and iGen, I think, millennials play an important role in sort of bridging what it was like in the world before everything was digital, and also having a good understanding of what things are like now that we live in this digital overload world. And with regards to iGen, and you mentioned this idea of disconnection, I think the fact that they've grown up saturated by technology, it is impacting social skills, and it is impacting the way that we can communicate face-to-face with one another. It's amazing on one hand that, I can have a conversation with someone who's 3,000 miles away through FaceTime or Skype, but people are having a really hard time communicating with someone who's 1 foot away from them.
I think your point about the kids, especially the iGeneration, being disconnected is really interesting to me, because as a millennial, I had I didn't really start disconnecting until I was a little bit older, whereas now I can see, 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, face deep in their iPad, on doing whatever. And it's really interesting to me to see, I guess, that shift, because when I was 6 or 7 and I was running around and I was playing, I didn't really touch technology until I was a little bit older. So it's an interesting concept to know that there are there's people out there who are raising their kids to be disconnected, and I think a lot of them blame, and when I say them, I'm talking about parents. I think a lot of parents blame technology, but really they have control over their child's access to the technology. So they have a lot of control over how disconnected their kids are going to be. However, they blame Facebook and they blame Twitter and Netflix and games and all those things, but they're the ones that are giving their child access to those things, especially at such a young age.
Yeah, and the thing that's really difficult about this is that screen time is not necessarily a bad thing. I like to think of it as like a nutritional diet, right? Are you consuming high-quality content that makes you think and reflect? Is it interactive? Are you connecting with friends somehow? Or is it junk food content that's basically just like sugar that you can consume endless amounts of and not really get much value out of at the end of it?
I really love how you pointed out earlier in your intro when you started talking. You really painted a beautiful picture for me how kids, at a certain point want independence. When they're 4 or 5 years old and you try to go tie their shoe, they'll go, "No, I want to do it. I want to do it." And so even since they were little, they've always are on this progression to try to do things for themselves or have their own opportunity to discover who they are for themselves and realize how powerful they are on their own. And technology seems to be that platform where they can be whoever they want. And they're not being told how to navigate or where to go. And so it's kind of like their own tool that they get to use to kind of be the master of their own universe.
Right. I completely agree. And I think the big difference, though, is that it's more so the perception that they have control over what it is that they're doing. Really a lot of these tools and these platforms are trying to guide you down a certain path because, again, their intention is to sap your attention for as long as possible. And so while it might feel like, I totally intended to, watch this cat video, that probably wasn't your original intention once you got onto your device, right? And so you might be getting, some level of value out of it and enjoying that video, but you may not necessarily have as much control as you think. And that is a result of the fact that these businesses, because they are in such heavy competition with one another for grabbing your attention, they have armies of engineers that are designing these products to be so engaging and so persuasive that it's difficult to feel like you really have control over it. And that's not to say that you can't do it. And I have some practical tips and tools for how you can be more intentional with how you engage with content and how you can also create some more habits in your life that are beneficial to who you want to be.
That sounds great. I was actually going to ask you, my next question was, since we all know that we are creating habits, how do we create the good ones, or how do parents create I guess more mindfulness to their kids? Like if they hand them an iPad, sometimes I see in restaurants a parent will hand their kid an iPad so that they'll be quiet and stop complaining, and then they'll play
Right.
a game or they'll watch a video. So what are the alternatives to that? How do we as parents give a little bit more positivity to it?
Yeah, and again, those things are very situational and difficult, right? Because it could be one of those situations where your kid has just exhausted themselves playing all day, and they're really not even in the mood to go out for dinner, and they're throwing tantrums, and it's really hard to actually get them to connect and be on a level until they actually eat something. And so, I understand in certain situations where, maybe it does make sense to give the kid a device and play some sort of interactive game so that you're not making a scene in front of everyone. But, I also don't want that to be like an easy outlet and excuse every time, right? And, it is really important that we develop a relationship with these kids, and that it's always sort of reading the situation and understanding what makes sense at that point in time. But when it comes to creating good habits, what I like to do is use the model that these tech companies use to actually engage you within their platform. And the formula is as such: behavior equals motivation, ability, and trigger. So I'll give you an example of this. When you see a red marker, the notification that pops up on Facebook, that's your trigger. The motivation to click on it is there because you get this instant gratification instead of dopamine.
You're talking about that red dot with a number in it of how many likes you got or how many responses that you got. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. Same thing works with a text message as well, right? Or an email. Twitter, LinkedIn, they all work in the same way. So that's your trigger. The motivation to click on it is there because you get the instant gratification, this hit of dopamine, which we're also wired to want. And the ability to do so is so ridiculously easy. I literally just have to touch a screen or click a button, and then all of a sudden I'm checking out my message or my notification or whatever it might be. And then you think, I'm just going to check the notification, and then you end up down this endless rabbit hole of content, for 20 or 30 minutes until you realize, whoa, I didn't mean to do that. And so that same formula is actually how our mind works, funny enough, right? So think about something that you often think about a lot, whether it's, something that you're worried about, or some sort of traumatic incident from your past, someone that you love. That initial thought, that's your trigger. The motivation to think about it is there because you get the instant gratification of thinking about that and going down that rabbit hole of thought. And the ability to do it is really easy. You don't have to leave your mind. And, that's kind of led us to this place that we're in right now where I saw a recent study that said people are typically lost in thought for about 47% of their waking hours. And that's exactly how social media is reflected, right? It's a stream of consciousness. That is how our mind works. So it's basically a reflection of how we are in the world today. But the good news is that you can use this exact same formula to incorporate very intentional habits into your day based on things that you actually like and want to do. So the idea is you take something within your existing daily routine that you already do. Let's say brush your teeth, sit down for dinner with the family, slip into bed, and you use that as the trigger for some little intentional habit that you want to take on. Now, the key is the motivation has to be there, right? It has to be something that you actually want to do. And you have to make it something so ridiculously easy, 30 seconds, 1 minute long, that you'll have no choice but to just do it. You'd almost be embarrassed if you didn't do it, right? So I'll give you an example. After I brush my teeth, I'm going to stretch for 30 seconds because maybe I was feeling a little pain in this joint or whatever it might be. Or whenever me and my family sit down for dinner, we're going to say one thing that we're grateful for, right? And it really hits on this need and want that we have for instant gratification. And, I'm kind of the philosophy that instant gratification is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as it's leading towards delayed gratification of some sort. So, once we start this gratitude practice and it becomes a habit, that's going to impact my well-being over time. Or the other way that I think instant gratification is not necessarily bad is if we're grateful for the fact that the instant gratification saved us time that we can now spend on other things that we want to do, right? I'm pretty sure that most people are glad they don't have to go into an encyclopedia to look up some sort of information that they can just pull through Wikipedia now, right? And so that saves us time. We're appreciative of that. And now we can spend more time doing things that we actually like.
What's interesting about instant gratification that I've realized as someone who loves instant gratification is that it goes just as fast as it comes. And I'm constantly after that chasing the next thing that's going to, satisfy me instantly. And I can see as the younger generations, as I see, people younger than me growing and adapting to that almost so naturally, like it's effortless for them to just know to do that. Whereas for me, it took a while to get there. It makes me nervous. It makes me nervous for them in the future because I know what it's like to work hard and then see a payoff, or work maybe hard and see a faster payoff, whereas they are only used to fast payoffs. And it's frustrating, especially now as I'm older and my internet's not going as fast, or people aren't liking my photo fast enough. It's frustrating that I'm spending so much time trying to get somewhere, and it almost feels like it's not fast enough.
Here's what makes me nervous is there's some universal laws and some principles that states that if you work really hard at something and you're committed to it and you put some practice and effort in a certain period of time, you become good at it. And I'm afraid that the younger generations are going to not have the patience to be able to really work at something long enough to be able to be good at things, and they're going to be frustrated because they can't be good at something fast enough, like they can't defy the laws of the universe quick enough, and then they're just going to be quitting everything.
Yep. Yeah, and that's absolutely one of my biggest concerns as well, and that's how I got down this path in the first place. I noticed the way that my niece was engaging with an iPad, who, had one in her hands around 18 months, which is just not uncommon at all for kids today.
Is she trying to swipe the TV also, or?
She has swiped the TV before, yeah. And they get this instant feedback, right? I click a button and something happens. So they start expecting everything to work like that. And as you mentioned, that's just not how life works. And so, patience, I think, is one of those big qualities that we need to cultivate, as well as our attention. So one of the values of Happy is patience is progress. And I think that, as you're saying, the most rewarding things in life really do take time. And I think that's what's nice about this little formula and using it to our advantage, is that it allows you to dip your toe in, and you just have to dip your toe in on a consistent basis to the point where you're saying, okay, I think I could put my feet in. And, as soon as you put your feet in, you're like, oh, wow, this is not so bad. And it gives you the opportunity to make your own tiny little choices that over time will have a big improvement on your life. The more time that you can start creating good habits for yourself outside of technology, the less you'll feel dependent or want to spend time engaging with technology. Or when you do use technology, you're using it more intentionally and as a way to impact and improve your life and for the valuable learning tool and platform that it is.
And I think this is great insight for parents to realize that you're going to have to take your young kids and create that moment where you teach them And maybe it's even specific things that you give them to nurture the patience in them. I watched this one video one time that they gave they put some cookies in front of a couple of kids. They were like maybe 3 or 4 years old, and they told them if you can wait 60 seconds before you eat the cookie, you'll get another one. And they had the video and they showed how many kids couldn't wait. It was like literally 9 out of 10 kids couldn't wait because they were so used to getting, they didn't have the patience. And so if you start off young with these kids and start teaching them intentionally how to develop the patience within them, I think they have a better chance at learning how to discover and grow in a healthy way.
What's funny about that is I saw that same exact video in a class once, and a lot of the comments on the video said, I guess the people thought it was a test to the children's intelligence, and it wasn't. So part of our argument in the class was it intelligence or was it something else? And I had decided that it was about patience and it was about gratification, because anybody knows that if you don't eat that one cookie, 2 cookies will come later is better. But it's not a test to their intelligence. And so it's very interesting to see that parents might be focusing in on the wrong thing. So if they see a dysfunction in their child that needs correction, they might be focusing on the wrong thing, thinking, you're smarter than that. I didn't teach you that. But there's so much more. Maybe you didn't teach it to them, but Facebook did. Maybe you didn't teach it to them, but YouTube did.
Right. Totally.
I'll tell you what, listen, we got to go on a quick break. We're going to have you come back because I know there's a wealth of knowledge that you have still to share with us. So stay tuned for more.
I do have some more.
All right, sounds good.
We'll be right back.
Right here in your hometown station, KHTS.
Did you know that SCVI has the only international baccalaureate program in our community? That means that students at Santa Clarita Valley International Public Charter School can participate in very rigorous classes run by highly trained and skilled international teachers. They work with kids to become active, compassionate, and lifelong learners. Students with IB diplomas at select colleges can graduate with a full year credit at their university. Schedule a tour today online at scvi-k12.org or by calling 705-4820.
Drugs or alcohol abuse can tear a family apart. In Santa Clarita, just like everywhere else, it's an epidemic. The Way Out Recovery is here to help. Call them now at 296-4444 or visit them on the web at thewayoutrocoveryscv.com. The Way Out offers outpatient treatment for adolescents, adults, and family members. The Way Out is compassionate, caring, professional, and confidential. You and your family don't have to suffer any longer. Call the Way Out Recovery now, 296-4444, or visit thewayoutrocoveryscv.com and make an appointment. Asking for help is the first step.
We all know someone impacted by the Las Vegas tragedy. It's touched our valley and thousands of households. Many of us were actually there. In Santa Clarita, we had 1 fatality and 14 injured by bullets. Many more were injured trying to escape. Others are still traumatized by their ordeal, finding challenges returning to normal lives. The law firm of Owen Patterson Owen is helping many Las Vegas victims get financial assistance for their ordeal. If you know someone impacted by the shooting, visit opolaw.com.
KHTS Breaking News.
According to LA sheriffs, there is a shooting death investigation in the 28,000 block of Startree Lane in Saugus. 4 victims were pronounced dead at the scene. Homicide detectives are headed out. Please avoid the area. This is north of Copper Hill and west of Saco on Startree Lane in Saugus. Repeating, according to LA County sheriffs, there is a shooting death investigation in the 28,000 block of Startree Lane in Saugus. Check the KHTS Facebook page for updates in addition to hometownstation.com.
Hometown.
Traffic report, simple news, weather, and lots of music. They pretty much play everything.
Your hometown station.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we're talking about millennials and technology. We have a special guest on. His name is Gabby Jubron. He is the founder of the nonprofit Happy. Gabby, before we went on the break, we were talking a little bit about some of the, behaviors and things that go on with the millennials and the I generation who are on social media. And when we were on the break, you had a really great point about self-control that I wanted to address before we go into your tips.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times whenever you're trying to maybe prevent some habit that you've taken on, a lot of times people will say, well, just exert your self-control. And it's really hard to do that if you haven't built the correct habits to be able to avert your attention from that thing that you're trying to prevent. So let's say you're someone who loves chocolate, and you're trying to make it a resolution that you don't eat chocolate, and you're going to try to quit eating chocolate for a while. Well, what ends up happening is you end up exerting so much focus and mental energy on not eating that piece of chocolate that by the end of the day, you end up getting exhausted and, you just end up caving in and eating the chocolate anyway. And there's a lot of research to back this up now. So instead of just giving yourself that piece of chocolate that you wanted, you end up, eating a little bit of snack, an apple, you end up, nibbling on something else. And then by the end of the day, you cave in and you eat it anyway. And so really, the answer is to not eat the piece. It's not to not eat the piece of chocolate, but to start building in other habits that over time, once they're strong, you won't feel the need to eat that chocolate. Or maybe you won't care about eating that piece of chocolate because you're doing so well in other aspects of your life. Now, did you want to say something?
Yeah, as you were saying that, the picture that I painted for myself as I was listening to that was, it appears to me that we're developing these unconscious habits. And in order to get rid of the unconscious habits, I have to create conscious habits.
Yes.
Rather than being in resistance to the unconscious habits, I just have to start focusing on creating the conscious habits that are just going to kind of steamroll over the ones that I don't want or that aren't effective for me or that aren't helping me.
Exactly. Now, going back to what I was saying before about that formula that these tech companies use or that advertising companies use to capture your attention, behavior equals motivation, ability, and trigger. What I would implore people to do when thinking about creating good habits is to use that formula to put in these little intentional habits into their day. And I think everyone ultimately is trying to achieve balance in their life. And people talk about work-life balance all the time. But I went to a really interesting workshop from the Design Lab at Stanford. And what they were saying is that work-life balance is really a false dichotomy, right? If I have more work in my life, does that mean that I all of a sudden have less life and vice versa? No, that's not necessarily the case. And what we should be thinking about in terms of achieving balance in our life is breaking it into 4 categories, which is work, love, play, and health. And being able to self-assess where I feel like I am in each one of those categories, and then use that formula that I gave you, behavior equals motivation, ability, and trigger, to add in one little incremental improvement that I can in each one of those categories: work, play, love, and health. And you could even take health and break it into multiple categories: mental, physical, spiritual. And it's a really simple way to check in with yourself and see where you feel like you are in those categories. And then figure out, okay, well, I can do better. What's this little thing that I can do here that's going to make my work better, or any one of those categories? And really, the ultimate goal, and I think this is something that I would say that you probably feel in your life, Alex, and Jasmine as well, is that the ultimate goal is to integrate all of those things, right? Right now we're technically doing work. Alex and Jasmine. But this is, I would say that there's love involved in this. I would say that it's also for our health and well-being. And I would also say that it's somewhat playful and fun that we get to do this, right?
Absolutely.
We found a way to integrate those things.
Gabby, I have a quick question. Going kind of back to your tips, I just, in case somebody just is joining us, we're talking to Gabby Jubron. He's the founder of the nonprofit Happy. Gabby, you grew up in the Silicon Valley, so you are really immersed in the technology, and it seems to me like you have these tips that are going to help people use the tools of technology more mindfully, have more intention, more positively. So I want to hit those tips before we have to end the show. I think those are going to be kind of our golden nuggets of the show. So you're on. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. So going back to how these tech companies get us to perform behaviors within their platforms, they use a formula, which is behavior equals motivation, ability, and trigger. The good news is that we can use that formula to incorporate intentional habits into our day. So you take things you do within your existing daily routine, things that you would do every day, like I said, brushing your teeth, maybe you like to go for a walk after dinner, or whatever it might be. You have things that you do every day. The goal is to use that as a trigger for an intentional habit that you want to take on. And as I mentioned before, you want to make it tie into your life. So either work, play, love, or health. What little incremental improvement can I make in my life with that formula? Take the trigger based on something that I do within my existing day. I have to have the motivation to do it. It has to be something that I already want to do with my life. And the ability to do it has to be ridiculously easy. If it takes more than 30 seconds or a minute, you're probably doing it too hard. And I think that solves the really critical problems that come with creating a habit, which is, one, remembering to do it every day. That's why you have the trigger. And then two, actually doing it every day so that it becomes a habit. And I've heard that it takes anywhere from 21 days to 40 days to actually create a solid habit. And once you've actually built the habit, you don't mind adding more volume onto it. Okay, instead of taking 3 deep breaths when I slip into bed, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes or whatever it might be. One other practical set of tools that I didn't have a chance to go over yet, and how are we doing on time?
You're good. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So there's this advocacy group and movement that started here in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area called Time Well Spent, which advocates for ethically and consciously designed technology. Essentially, how does it enhance our life and not distract us from our life? And what I've basically done is said, yes, that's what we want in the future. This is what we're advocating for. But how do we take that idea of time well spent and create a practical tool around it so that we can live more intentionally when it comes to all aspects of our life? And because the way I think about the idea of time well spent is, what are the things that I want in my life? What do I want to prioritize? How do I design my life in a way that lives with the idea of time well spent? And so it's really about 3 things. This is how you practice using technology mindfully. This is how you practice listening mindfully. It's how you practice, spending money mindfully. It's all about intention, attention, and attitude. So I'll use the example of technology because we've been talking about that a lot today. Intention. What is the reason that I'm paying attention to this screen right now? Is this serving me in some way, or am I serving this business? And none of us are going to be able to catch ourselves right away because we've been using technology unconsciously for 10 years, and we've built a very strong habit around that. But just being able to build the muscle and ask ourselves that question over time and reflect on it. Then attention. What are the things that I value and care about that I want to focus my time on, whether it's online or offline? And then lastly, attitude. if I find myself steering off course from whatever my original intention was, being kind and compassionate towards myself and redirecting my attention back to my intention. And if I didn't have an intention in the first place, I can go to my attention and say, oh, look at all of these things that I want to focus my time on. Let me pick one now, right? And so it's constantly cycling between those three things: intention, attention, and attitude. And last point I want to make here, because I want to make sure that people understand how this ties to all other aspects of their life. Let's talk about spending money, for example. So intention. What's the reason that I'm spending money on this? Is this serving me, or am I serving this business? Attention. What are the things that I like to spend my money on? Whether it's, travel, experiences, self-care, family, whatever it might be. And then attitude. If I find myself spending misaligned with those values, being like, you know what, that's okay, I'll do better next time. So intention, attention, attitude.
I really like the attitude part, because for me, when I find myself have been distracted from something, whether it's a couple minutes and I go down the rabbit hole, especially online, sometimes it could be hours. I kind of beat myself up. Like, I could have done so much with that time. So I kind of like how you said to compassionately redirect yourself and put you back on course, and ask yourself, what was my intention? Why did I open this laptop or this iPad or my phone? What was I going to do? And I feel like in that beating myself up, at that point I'm done and I want to close the laptop and move on with my life. So I really like that you brought that up. But I also like how having an intention before you do anything is very important, not just in technology, but I'm going to speak for myself, I'm not conscious enough yet to start doing every single thing with intention. I'm kind of like the example that you said. If it's longer than a minute, I'm not, I'm working too hard, or I'm not going to do it at all. And as a millennial, I can say that I'm also the kind of person that is looking at something, and if I don't get it right away, then I quit almost. So it's like I'm setting myself up to lose, because I'm not starting to create habits. I'm just doing until I get something in return. Same reason why if we say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym every day, and we start off, really strong, and then it fades out because we didn't work our way into it or ease our way into it. So I really like the intention thing and creating habits, because I beat myself up when I don't make it longer than a month at the gym, or if I'm being honest, 2 days. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, here's one thing I want to say about intention from my experience of, really studying the word intention and practicing it in my own life, is that in order to operate from creating an intention and living an intentional life, you really have to have some self-assuredness in you. You really have to have some confidence and really believe that you are that powerful to create whatever it is that you say that you're intending to create. You really can't have a low self-esteem to the point where you don't believe that you're a force to be reckoned with. You really have to have a deep confidence that you are a creator and that you co-create and manifest results in your life in order to be operating from a very powerful intention. Because I believe that certain people that don't believe in themselves, when you tell them to be intentional, it's almost like, you're asking them to do something to speak a certain language that they don't even understand.
Right.
I also...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I also think that, kind of going back on your topic of you have to have that confidence and self-assurance. It's interesting that we have a millennial group that a lot of us millennials that are working on ourselves meet up, and we talk about, things that are going on in our life. And one of the reoccurring topics is self-love. And I think a big part of being on the internet, especially on the social media platforms, is self-love. If you don't have it, you may be using, and I'm not going to say you, because I also, so I'm going to say we all may be using it with the wrong intention, and it's kind of hurting us a little bit, especially the millennials and the teenagers. I just wanted to touch up on that self-love, and I think when we come back from the break, we can kind of go over that. But before we go, I do want to mention that the idea of self-love is such an insane, and you could back me up on this, Dad. It's such a bizarre concept that we think we know all about, but we really don't even. Some of us don't even dabble in it a little bit, if that makes sense.
If someone asks us, do you love yourself? Without a shadow of a doubt, we're all going to say absolutely, 150%. But if you really look at some of the choices we're making in our lives, and we get called on it, and where are you choosing from? Are you choosing from loving yourself? A lot of the times we realize that we're not. And so it's a journey, and it's a constant practice that we got to be coming from loving thyself in every choice that we make as well.
Well, I think before the internet, at least when I was a little bit younger, before I had my MySpace profile, I didn't really know anything about myself other than the little consciousness that 12 or 13-year-old me had. It wasn't until I got on MySpace and I had validation and people posting to my wall and everything that I started to kind of be created by other people, if that makes sense. So it's a long journey of self-love that I just barely started, but as a kid, a 6-year-old who's online and already has a Facebook profile and a little Twitter picture and everything, it's interesting to think that they're going to grow up in a world where self-love is taught, but it's not really expressed, if that makes any sense. It's what it is because you see people telling you, like, commenting, oh, you look amazing, you look great, but you don't feel that unless someone tells it to you. So I want to talk a little bit more of that when we come back from the break. You're listening to your hometown station, KHTS.
Santa Clarita, bedbugs are taking over our city. They've invaded our homes, our businesses, and most importantly, our sleep. If you have suspicious bites that appear nightly, or have a bug that you need ID'd, your best option is to make one call to All Pro. We offer a 100% guarantee that your bedbug issues will be solved with heat in one treatment. No need to tent or spray your house with chemicals. Heat is all you need. Call 661-298-2200 or text me a bug picture to 661-645-0540. It's time to sleep tight again, STV.
Don and Gino here. So we know you want to have fun learning about real estate and finance. You're going to want to tune in this Saturday, 9 a.m. to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show right here on your hometown station. Hot topics, as always, guiding you to personal and financial wellness. And that's right, you don't want to miss it. So again, this Saturday, 9 a.m., and then we replay it online Sunday, 9 a.m., Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. right here on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show. Join us.
There is only one language spoken at Thai Dish, and it sounds something like this.
This is great.
Once people get a taste of Thai dishes, there's really no reason to do any more talking. Make it full of flavor, make it delicious, only at Thai Dishes. Enjoy the atmosphere, love the food. Thai Dishes on Valencia Boulevard for free delivery, 253-FOOD. That's 253-FOOD.
KHTS Breaking News.
Earlier this morning, KHTS learned of the tragedy that had struck the Santa Clarita community. Officials have confirmed that a family of 4 were all found dead inside their Valencia home. While investigations will continue long into the foreseeable future, officials have determined that the incident was a murder-suicide. The family's mother, daughter, and son were gunned down by the father of the family, who then turned the gun on himself. This is a breaking news story, and for all the latest information, follow us on Facebook or go to hometownstation.com.
KHTS.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we're talking about Millennials and Technology, and we have Gabby Jubron on the phone. He's the founder of the nonprofit Happy. And before we went on the break, Gabby, we were talking a little bit about self-love and the internet, or self-love and social media. And one of the things that I kind of have a question, but I'm having trouble formulating it into a question, but I want to know what's behind the connection between self-love and social media. Like I said earlier, when I was younger, I was going through a process of finding who I am, and then social media popped up. So I kind of found a little bit who I am through MySpace and through my friends, and then through Facebook, and then through Twitter. So I want to know what that connection is. How does How does social media affect how we learn to love ourselves?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, going back to what I was saying before about how ultimately everyone wants to feel like they have agency in their lives and that they're able to make their own decisions. And so many kids, they're told to live a certain way their entire lives. And when they get on social media, a lot of them don't have a strong sense of self and what they care about and what's important to them. So when I'm engaging on social media as a kid, and I'm feeling like, I have control finally, I am going to get validation from how many likes my picture got on it, like I was saying before, because everyone wants to fit in and be cool and belong to something bigger than themselves. And it's really hard to practice self-love if you're not looking inside of yourself. Social media is an inherently external force. Now, that's not to say that you can't get value out of social media by learning more about things that you do like and do care about, and by connecting with friends. Again, it's all about the intention around how you use social media. Now, when I go ahead.
And for me, I spend a lot of time focusing on helping teenagers discover that self-love that they have deep within them. And just like you were saying, self-love is generated from within yourself. And when you were, Jasmine, when you were talking about there was a period in your life where you started on this journey of self and looking within and starting the very first stages of going within yourself and starting to find the things first that you liked about yourself, and then transitioning into the things that you love about yourself, and then social media came along. Social media is a platform that, in an unhealthy way, because there's an unhealthy way and a healthy way. In an unhealthy way, if we don't have that solid context and love for ourselves, we can very easily now start seeking it externally and then looking for other people to validate it for us. But that's not what self-love is. That's the empty hole that we have inside that we're looking for other people to fill it up for us, which ends up having a hole inside, and we can never get enough because you're not filling the bucket from within yourself. So that's why I believe that social media is for healthy-minded people. If you have a healthy context, then you can use social media for all these amazing tools and avenues, and really utilize the best that comes out of social media, and you're not needy of anything from it. You're not you're not addicted to the external things that people are giving to you. When you come from a healthy context, you're so unattached to what people respond or their comments. It's not that you're not grateful for what they're saying. You're just not needy of it. You're not coming from an unhealthy place of, I need you to validate me. I need you to like what I just said right now. And so I think that's what really the context of self-love comes from within yourself, not from searching it from other people to validate you outside yourself.
Gabby, we only have about 2 minutes left. I want to hear a little bit more about Happy. If I'm interested, I'm listening. How can I get more information?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll see us on happy.org, HAPPI. We haven't fully launched our content, but there is a silly little introductory video to explain a little bit more about what we're about. There's a lot more about our philosophy and how to get in contact with us on that site. Again, it's HAPPI.org. And just so everyone knows, HAPPY is an acronym, which is Helping Awesome Parents, Parent Intentionally. We've been talking a lot about intention today. Not only is it a really critical piece to practicing mindfulness, intention, attention, and attitude, it's a really critical piece to creating meaningful human connection. And I think that's ultimately what we are lacking from social media. I think the three keys to creating that meaningful human connection are intention, space, and storytelling. And, that's something that you do with this radio show, right? Our intention was to discuss this particular topic today. You created the space where there are limited distractions, and we're able to have a really valuable conversation around it. And we told stories about ourselves and about what we see in this world today. So last piece about intention that I want to talk about, which is a general mantra that I've been following as of late, is good intentions and no expectations. And when you bring good intentions into something, but you're not expecting anything out of it, and this ties to what Alex was just saying a second ago with social media and expecting to get validation and filling that hole, you're never going to be disappointed. And oftentimes, you will just end up being surprised about all the amazing things that happen in your life as a result of following that mantra.
Gabby, thank you so much for joining us today. That's all the time we have.
Thank you, Gabby.
We are
You're
here.
welcome. Thank you.
We're here every Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Welcome to Century 21.